All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's workshop. Let me just make sure that you can hear me, and you can, which is fantastic. Let me just mute myself there on my other tab so I don't need to listen to myself any more than I do. Welcome. So glad to have you here for tonight's workshop. It is episode 15 of Innovative EdTech tonight, and we've got another cracker of an episode, another cracker workshop to go through, bringing you some more wonderful tips on how to incorporate educational technology into your classroom. So let's get started with tonight's workshop. So let me just pull up my screen. Let's choose this one. Okay, so let's choose the right one. All right, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Formative Assessment Reinvented 10 EdTech ideas that you can use in class tomorrow. So tonight's workshop is all about practicality, looking at some different tools and some different ways that you can use EdTech to incorporate formative assessment into your classrooms very quickly and easily. And all of these ideas you can definitely start to be looking at and thinking about and using them in class tomorrow. All right, so if we have not met before, it is lovely to see you. My name is Tristan Heron, and I am the creator and founder of Evolve EdTech. Evolve EdTech actually started out as the EdTech teacher in 2020. We started out pre-COVID, believe it or not. I don't know whether that was something that I was just, unaware of that was about to happen, but we started out in 2020 in January. I am a fully qualified K to 12 teacher here in Australia, which means that I can teach all of our different year groups from K, from kindergarten, from the very beginning of school, all the way up to year 12. And I have majors in English and history. So they're my high school teaching speciality areas. I have been teaching for over 10 years. I have taught in a kindergarten to year 12 classroom at some stage throughout my high school career, but I have been predominantly a high school educator. And I love EdTech. If you have met me before, you will know that I absolutely love this particular topic, and it is something that I am very passionate about. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here with Evolve EdTech trying to share my love of EdTech with you. And my love of EdTech actually started in my first high school teaching job in 2012, and it started with using Moodle. I was introduced to Moodle by our technology support officer, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And then that is where my love of EdTech fostered, and it grew and grew and grew. And now here I am sharing my love of this with you. So if we haven't met before, it's lovely to have you here with us. If you're watching the recording, thank you so much for joining us. It means a lot to have you here. All right, so let's dive into tonight's episode. So, what are you going to be able to think about, be able to investigate, be able to go and experiment with by the end of this workshop? So, by the end of this workshop, you will have 10 easy to use EdTech tools that you can incorporate into your classroom for a variety of formative assessment purposes. So, we're going to share 10 tools with you tonight. Okay, tonight is a sharing episode where we're going to provide you with some wonderful suggestions as well. We're going to share with you some ideas and we're going to provide a range of context so that you know which tools best suit your particular teaching context. So, not every tool that we share tonight might be right for you. So, we're just going to provide them to you and share them with you and let you make up your mind as to whether or not that tool is something that might be purposeful for you. All right, hopefully at the end of this episode, you will be able to leave with at least one strategy that you could use in class tomorrow. So if you were going to take one of these strategies and one of these tools that we're going to share with you in this episode and implement it tomorrow, we hope that you'll be able to do that. And we really hope that you will feel more confident and creative in checking student understanding. Formative assessment is a very powerful tool, and we are here to help provide you with a wonderful array of easy EdTech tools so that you can conduct really purposeful formative assessment with your students. So that is what we hope you will take away by the end of this workshop. All right, so let's get this party started. And what is formative assessment? we have all been to university or we are at university, okay? We should all have a really basic understanding of formative assessment. Whether or not you've been able to actually, get into the classroom and really look at the ins and outs of formative assessment based on your particular time within your career is a completely different question here. But what is formative assessment? So let's just, before we jump into having a look at some ideas, let's go back and have a look at what is formative assessment so that we all have an understanding of what this is before we dive in. All right, so formative assessment here. Formative assessment is the ongoing process of gathering evidence about student learning during a lesson or unit. And I can tell you, we are already doing that each and every day. Every time that we have a class, every time that we're with a student, we are gathering evidence. It might just be anecdotal, okay? It might be something a bit more physical, all right? But we are always gathering evidence, information to monitor and assess our students' learning during a lesson or unit. Okay, formative assessment helps teachers identify students' understanding, adjust teaching strategies, and provide timely feedback to improve student learning outcomes. Now, we know that obviously being able to provide our students with timely feedback is so important, but also sometimes being able to adjust our lessons and cater for, particular understandings can be quite challenging if you've got a large class of 30 students because you'll have 30 diverse students. However, if we're using a variety of formative assessment tools, we can gather really useful and purposeful information that we can then use to help improve learning outcomes for our students. So, unlike summative assessment, formative assessment is used during learning, not at the end. So, when we are assessing our students, we are gathering that information, okay, and we are consistently looking at what they can do, things that they might need to work on more, areas that we might need to revise. We are consistently doing that as educators as part of our formative assessment practices. We don't just do this at the very end of our unit, all right? We are continuously checking our students' understanding so that we are able to help them improve and become absolute masters at whatever you are teaching them and whatever you are looking at. So formative assessment is a really, really important part of our role as an educator. But I'm not here to harp on about formative assessment anymore because we know that it is really essential as educators. So let's dive in and have a look at some of the reasons why we should be using formative assessment. Okay, we've kind of alluded to some of these, but now let's dive in a little bit more, have a look at 5 reasons why you and I should be using and incorporating formative assessment into our teaching practices. Okay, our first reason is formative assessment tracks student progress in real time. So, formative assessment helps teachers, such as you and I, understand how students are doing and if they are ready to move forward. So, is your student ready to move forward with writing that complete essay, for example? Or do we need to focus on our paragraph structure or making sure that our students know what the actual structure of the essay is before we move on to that next component? Are we in maths? Do our students understand their multiplication tables before we move on to other elements of maths? So we need to make sure that our students have that understanding and that they are ready to move on to whatever we're going to look at in order to be successful. So we can track their progress. We might have actual trackers. We might have a Google form or a Microsoft form that we are using to track and indicate. We might just be doing it anecdotally. Okay, there are so many ways that we can track student progress to see what they have achieved and what they need to continue to work on before they move forward. All right, the next reason why formative assessment is important, okay, is it informs our teaching. We are all educators, we are all qualified, we have all been to university, we have all got a degree, okay, so we understand that this information that we obtain through formative assessment can be really beneficial. And it enables you and I as educators to tailor our instruction based on students' needs and understanding. And again, this comes from not just formative assessment. This comes from experience as an educator. Okay, I have been teaching for more than 10 years now, so I know that at the moment I have a couple of classes, and for our particular units, I've identified some strategies to assist some of my students so that they are able to access the learning. And 10 years ago, I would not have thought about this because I didn't have that experience and understanding. So formative assessment can not only inform your understanding now, it can also inform your understanding of how to tailor instruction in the future. And it's something that you can reflect on and something that you can use to help you become an even better, more proficient educator. So formative assessment helps inform our teaching practices so that we can make sure that our instruction is based on student needs and understanding. All right, the third reason why we should use formative assessment in the classroom is it helps improve student outcomes. We are always focused on our student learning outcomes. We are always focused on making sure that our students are able to tackle everything that we give them. And formative assessment is one way that we can do this, okay? It provides not only yourself, but also your students with meaningful feedback to help them grow and take ownership of their own learning. Okay, so you are going to provide them with their own feedback to help them grow and to help them become, okay, an even stronger, even more competent young person in your particular teaching area. So formative assessment helps you, but also helps your students. All right, reason number 4 why we should be using formative assessment in our classrooms. Okay, it encourages active engagement. If you're like me and you have found that student engagement is something that is sometimes like pulling teeth out of a chicken, it is absolutely mind-boggling how students are so kind of timid and scared and they don't know what to say or what to share with the fear of being wrong. Well, we can actually, alleviate that by encouraging students by incorporating some different formative assessment practices into our classroom. We can make learning more interactive. We can keep students involved. We can check their progress. We can use a variety of tools like we're going to explore tonight so that we can encourage that engagement. Okay, maybe we're not getting our students to verbally provide something, but maybe they're doing a word cloud. Maybe they're doing something using a tool like Poll Everywhere. Okay, they're doing something that encourages that engagement that allows us to check and monitor their progress. So formative assessment also encourages active engagement. All right, and our final reason why formative assessment is so important to use in the classroom as an educator is, again, it helps you as a teacher identify learning gaps early. All right, so formative assessment helps catch misconceptions or difficulties before they become big issues and problems. All right, so these particular formative assessment strategies that we are going to suggest tonight are only part of the solution, okay? These are not the be all and end all, but they could help you catch a misconception. They could help you catch a difficulty that you didn't realize a student had because they've been able to hide or mask or do something or, just fly under the radar. So formative assessment is so important in helping you as a teacher identify learning gaps in your students' knowledge really early so that you can work on fixing those and supporting your young people. So just there are 5 very good reasons why formative assessment is so important. But we know this. As educators, we know that this is such an important part of our job to make sure that we are continuously assessing and checking our students' understanding to make sure that they are growing and they are achieving to the best of their ability. All right, so why this leads to the next part here. Why should we be looking at technology for formative assessment? Now, I know that I will have colleagues who scream black and blue that, technology is, not the way forward. The final Year 12 exams are written. We need to make sure that we have our students being able to write. Okay, I'm not disputing that. At the moment, yes, maybe our final exams are written, but in the future, there's very, very strong likelihoods that these things will be completed using technology. We need to make sure that our students are competent users of technology, and by using technology for formative assessment is one way to start to develop that really informative, creative, sophisticated skills and learning that our students are going to need in the future. So, what are some of the reasons why you could use technology for formative assessment? Now, if you've noticed just here, I have put the word you in capitals. Okay, I want you to understand that you could use technology for formative assessment. I'm not saying you have to use technology for formative assessment every time, but think about how you could use it. So, here are some suggestions as to why we could use technology for formative assessment. So, we could use technology to provide instant feedback, okay, and make faster adjustments. So, getting our students to respond to something, okay, might help us adjust our following lesson or lessons to make sure that we are meeting the requirements of our young people. Okay, we could also generate higher student engagement through interactivity. Okay, some of my best lessons that I have experienced with my students have been when I've used a tool. Okay, and I'm going to show you a tool later this year. Okay, called Google Vids. If you haven't checked out Google Vids, it is such a powerful tool. And believe it or not, I have not seen my year 8 class that engaged with an activity ever before. And it was something that I really found interactive, and my students really showcased a whole heap to me, which was amazing. So, student engagement can be really heightened if we are using interactive, engaging technology in our classrooms. All right, we can use technology for formative assessment to support a range of learning styles. So we know that our students learn in different ways. Okay, I am definitely a listener. I don't like to write a lot. Okay, I prefer to listen and take things in. I might read something on a screen or look at some slides like I have for you tonight. Okay, and that's my preferred way of accessing information. Some of your students may be avid note takers. Some of your students may like to do something with their hands. They might be creative. They might like to, draw or do something with that particular style. So making sure that we are using formative assessment supports a range of learning styles for our students that we may have in our classes. All right, formative assessment and technology is great for both in-person, hybrid, or online learning. Okay, so if you are still in that kind of phase of COVID where you might have some students who might be in class, you might have some online students, maybe you're teaching at an online school, or maybe you're like me and you're completely 100% in person now. Okay, formative assessment is so easy to do with technology in all three of these examples. So using technology for formative assessment, if you're in class, if you've got a hybrid class, or you're an online class, is so simple. And finally, why should we think about using formative assessment and technology is it can save you time on marking and planning. Okay, so there's so many tools out there that we could use to help us regenerate, refocus, and actually figure out what we need to do with our students moving forward. So, just there are 5 very valid reasons why you could use technology for formative assessment in your classroom tomorrow. Okay, and there are 5 very valid reasons. Okay, feedback, engagement, support. Okay, great for the different types of presentations that we might have with our students, and also saves you time. So 5 very simple reasons why we should really be thinking about how can we use technology in the classroom for formative assessment. All right, that is just kind of the first introductory part, okay, where I just really wanted you to make sure that you were understanding this concept of formative assessment, because it is so essential that we have that understanding before we jump into our next session. All right, just needed a quick drink break there. So we are now ready to dive in to the guts of tonight's presentation. And that is where we are going to share with you 10 EdTech ideas. Okay, so we're going to share with you 10 tools that you could use in the classroom tomorrow based on your particular context for formative assessment purposes. Okay, these are just some examples. There are many other examples that you could use, but these are just 10 that you might be able to go out there and investigate. There might be something you're already using. We just want you to think about this. So tonight we're just here to share some ideas so that you can go out there and think about what you might like to try in your classroom. All right, so let's have a look. Okay, so as I mentioned, we are going to share those 10 ideas, but because we are an absolute overachiever here at Evolve EdTech, we're not just going to share 10 tools with you, but we're going to share 3 different ways that you could use each of those tools. So we're going to share 10 EdTech tools, but we're also going to share 30 different ways that you could use these EdTech tools. Amazing. We are just so generous here at Evolve EdTech. It is absolutely unbelievable. So we're going to share 10 tools with you tonight, 30 ideas to help you identify some really simple and effective ways to complete formative assessment in your classroom today using educational technology. So let's jump into the good stuff and let's get started with tool number 1. Okay, tool number 1, is Mentimeter. All right, Mentimeter, if you have not used it before, is an online platform enabling educators to conduct interactive polls, quizzes, and gather real-time feedback, fostering enhanced student engagement and participation. Okay, there are lots of words in this description which are fantastic for when it comes to formative assessment. Interactive polls, quizzes, okay, real-time feedback, real-time information that you are going to receive from your students for a variety of different formative assessment purposes, okay? So a fantastic tool that you could use in the classroom today. Okay, here is idea number 1 for Mentimeter. Okay, maybe you are a primary teacher. I am a primary trained teacher. I haven't taught primary school that much. I've done a little tiny bit of it, so I have very little understanding of what it's like to be a primary teacher. But maybe you're a primary teacher and you are teaching science to your students. You could use Mentimeter to create a word cloud. And this just image over here is actually a beautiful example from Mentimeter of a word cloud. Okay, so maybe you ask your students, what happens when you heat water? Your students jump onto their devices, whether they are laptops, Chromebooks, whether they are tablets, whatever you are using, and your students then create their response using a word cloud. How cool is that? You get lots of ideas here. You'll also get a lot of information, a lot of variation. Okay, what kind of language are your students using to respond to this particular question? Do you need to go back and have a look at this to make sure that your students are using the correct vocabulary and terms when it comes to this particular element of science? So you could use Mentimeter to create a word cloud in science in a primary school. So simple, so quick. Okay, it's not going to take up a lot of time, and it provides you with wonderful information and real-time feedback. Okay, another example here, and this is one that leads to my heart as a secondary English teacher. Okay, maybe we're looking at a particular text. Maybe we're looking at, for this particular case, a poem. Okay, and we're just going to do a live poll. So we've read a poem, and I've asked my students, what's the mood of this particular poem? Okay, we might have some different options. Okay, and your students are going to show me what they think the mood of the poem is. And you can kind of look at that and make an assessment and judgment as to whether or not your students have understood the poem, whether you need to reread it, okay, whether you need to find a recording of it on YouTube, okay, but it's going to provide you with some really important information. It might even lead to some discussion, okay, why do you think this particular mood is represented? and maybe somebody brings up an example or provides an opinion and you haven't even thought about that. So a really great way to check your under students using Mentimeter if you're an English teacher. And our final example here is not just for the classroom. We could use these formative assessment practices also within our own professional development. So maybe you are working with some colleagues, okay? Maybe you're presenting something about educational technology to your colleagues and you have a slide scale, okay, to just, get a general gist of your colleagues' understanding. You might ask them to rate their confidence with using digital tools. Okay, this would be really interesting because I believe that you'd probably get a really interesting variety from maybe very low from those people that haven't really embraced EdTech to, people like myself who'd be like, I love technology. I'm very confident with technology. So that might really help you as well as a teacher and to help your colleagues identify what you might be able to work on to support your colleagues. So Mentimeter, a really simple way to conduct polls, quizzes to get real-time feedback, foster that engagement in your classroom. Okay, and if you are looking at Mentimeter, there's a little screenshot right there of what it looks like at this particular point in time in 2025. All right, so you can jump in there, you can have a look, you can play around, you can see if it is a tool that would be suitable for you. So just remember that these are just options, and I want you to jump in and see if these would be perfect or right for your particular context. Okay, idea number 2 is an oldie but a goodie, and it's one that I've noticed is starting to make a comeback, and it is Padlet. Okay, I remember Padlet from its very early days, and Padlet was really cool back then, and I can see that Padlet has really, developed and grown since then. So Padlet is a versatile online notice board where educators and students can collaboratively share ideas, resources, and feedback in a visually organized format. Okay, so this is all about that visual format. Okay, it's like a notice board. I remember using this way back many years ago. I think it was about 2000 and maybe 18. Okay, I had an AEST class, so a technology class, and I remember using a Padlet board to get my students to show me some understanding for what we had been looking at. And I loved it. And I thought it was fantastic back then. And I still think it would be a fantastic tool today for formative assessment. All right, so let's have a look at 3 ways that we could use Padlet in our classrooms for formative assessment purposes. All right, maybe you are teaching geography, okay? Maybe you are looking at human society and its environment, maybe social sciences in primary school, maybe you are a geography teacher in a high school, okay? It doesn't matter where you are working. This particular example here is one that you could definitely incorporate into both upper, lower, whatever year groups you are teaching. And that is posting an image of a landform and a fact about it. So going out there, finding an image, and then just writing something interesting about that particular landform. Okay, so you might be looking at different types of environments. You might be looking at different types of countries. There's so many things that you could do here. And hopefully you will have a very nice array of images and facts on your Padlet board that you could then look at as a class to see what your students have identified. Are there a particular type of landform? Okay, did someone choose something very obscure? It's a really great way to see what your students are thinking, okay, and identify where do you go next? All right, so a really cool, interactive, visual way to collect information from your students, okay, that is collaborative and really, really cool. Okay, the next idea is maybe you are a drama teacher, or maybe you have some kind of drama club or dash class. Maybe you've got some after school type of class with drama. You use a Padlet board to brainstorm emotions or stage directions for a scene. So you might create your Padlet board, okay, you pop up your scene description, and then you get your students to use the various tools. It might be a sticky note to brainstorm emotions, feelings, maybe even some stage directions that we have to use to bring this particular scene to life. So simple, so cool. A great way for collaboration, a great way to check your students' understanding, a great way to see, who is providing what types of ideas and what are your students bringing to your group. You might find that those really quiet students who don't necessarily say a lot might be in their absolute element because now they're able to step out of that kind of anxious zone and they're able to share their ideas digitally. So sharing ideas, emotions, stage directions through a Padlet brainstorm, another fantastic idea on how you could conduct formative assessment in your class. Okay, and again, back to our colleagues, because it is really important that we are looking at how we can, conduct formative assessment with ourselves. Okay, maybe we've got some pre-service teachers. So maybe we've got some university students that you are working with. Okay, maybe you are a university lecturer or tutorer. Maybe we could look at Padlet and collaboratively design a lesson structure. So maybe we're working together or even working together in small groups, and we're having a look at what we could do to structure a lesson. Okay, how do we have our hook? What's our orientation? How do we, focus on our middle session? Okay, what's our conclusion? What's our exit ticket? We could work together to collaboratively design a lesson structure for a particular scenario and context using a Padlet board. So Padlet, an oldie but a goodie, and a really great way to conduct formative assessment in your classroom. All right, and that is what Padlet looks like at the moment, and it just looks so inviting and exciting, which is wonderful. So again, if you're looking for something, check out Padlet. Okay, it has changed and grown a lot over the years, and it is something that I think is going to be a really useful tool for you to go out there and have a look at. All right, our third idea, our third wonderful suggestion when it comes to completing formative assessment in the classroom, again, is a very oldie but a goodie, and that is Kahoot. You have probably used Kahoot. You have probably, gone, Kahoot is overused, but you know what? I don't care if it's overused. It's actually a really useful way to conduct formative assessment that is really quick, okay, and it can really be beneficial to you. So Kahoot is a game-based learning platform that allows educators to create and host quizzes, polls, and interactive lessons for students. Okay, this is something that I found really useful, especially during COVID and my learning from home period, is that using Kahoot for those kind of interactive lessons is so simple now. So I actually, scheduled a quiz on Kahoot for my students to complete when they were learning at home. And it was really great to see what my students did, their understanding and accessing that, okay, remotely. So Kahoot has a lot of benefits when it comes to this idea of formative assessment in the classroom. Okay, so some suggestions. Maybe you are teaching primary mathematics. Okay, you could very quickly create some multiplication challenges for your students. Okay, so testing your students' understanding of a particular, multiplication table. So maybe we're doing 10, 12, whatever we're doing. Again, we can create these. We could ask ChatGPT to create the questions. We might have some simple questions. Okay, we might have some kind of written questions. Okay, we might have some scenarios. We could do all kinds of different things to check our understanding of our students' knowledge of their multiplication tables using Kahoot. Okay, it's game-based, it's fun, it's a challenge. They're trying to beat each other. Okay, it's a great way to check their understanding. Okay, maybe you are a history teacher. I am a history teacher. I've got a lovely group of wonderful friends. Kerry, okay, hello. Hope you're watching this episode. Okay, you are a wonderful history teacher, and history is a really great subject. So maybe in history, you could have a Kahoot quiz. Maybe it's to get started. Maybe it's looking at a new topic. Okay, maybe it's just a hook at the beginning of the semester or unit. Okay, and maybe you have a guess the year Kahoot quiz. So maybe you have some pictures of different events in history, and then you have the options, and you see what your students think when those particular events happened in time. Okay, how cool is that? I could see that being done with something like a decade study. Okay, could see that being done with something like ancient history or modern type of history. That could be really cool and exciting, and a great way to, you might have some particular pictures in there related to your unit, and you really focus on the results for those ones, and test your students' understanding of when they think particular events happened in history. And our final example here, again, we've got another example here for teacher PD, because I think it's, again, really important that we look at our own education, and maybe you're presenting and delivering to your colleagues, and maybe we do a recap on terminology. So maybe we've just presented to our colleagues on formative and summative assessment, okay, and we go in there and we have a very quick Kahoot to check their understanding, okay? It's really great to have something interactive when it comes to presenting to our colleagues, because we know what it's like to sit there and go, oh my God, this never ends. But if we have something interactive like a Kahoot, it's really going to increase that engagement, and your colleagues are going to take away more from that. So maybe you have some PD and you use a Kahoot to check the understanding of your colleagues when it comes to a particular topic. So there's another really 3 fantastic ways that we could use a simple tool like Kahoot in our classrooms today to conduct formative assessment. And that is what Kahoot looks like at the moment. Okay, there are lots and lots of options with Kahoot, so it is a little bit overwhelming, I think, when you go and look at Kahoot, especially if you want to invest in Kahoot's kind of premium plans. So my advice is to just keep an eye out, because they often have really great discounts. So keep an eye out during those times of year. Definitely very soon with the Northern Hemisphere heading into summer. So there'll be some great back to school deals probably coming up. So if you're looking to invest in Kahoot, that's what I would be waiting for. All right. But it is a wonderful tool that I have personally invested in before, okay, that you could use for your formative assessment practices today. Okay, let's head over to idea number 4. And this is a brand new one that I think is a great tool. And it is a tool that I am using right now to present to you during this workshop, and that is Canva. Okay. And I'm really focusing on Canva Whiteboard. I'm not using Canva Whiteboard at the moment, but I am using Canva. And Canva has just exploded with what you can do and how functional Canva is for everybody, including you and I as educators. So Canva Whiteboard. Canva Whiteboard offers educators a collaborative online canvas for brainstorming, visual learning activities, and interactive presentations with students. So if you're looking for an interactive space where you can brainstorm, you can do all kinds of different things, Canva Whiteboard might be the solution that you are looking for. You could also get Canva Whiteboard, and you could provide your students with Canva Whiteboard access to complete a variety of different activities. Maybe it's individual, maybe it's in pairs or groups, but there's so many ways that you could use this tool to complete and conduct formative assessment. So maybe you're a science teacher, and I work with some amazing science teachers at my school, and I see it each and every day on our Facebook page. And, maybe you could use Canva Whiteboard in science to get your students to label parts of a diagram. So maybe you're looking at a particular plant. Maybe you're looking at the introductions to the Bunsen burner and safety equipment in the lab. Okay, you could use Canva Whiteboard to get your students to label that. So using their devices, whether they're laptops, Chromebooks, iPads, tablets, whatever they're using, they could be using Canva Whiteboard to do this. It might be an individual activity, it might be a group activity, okay? There's a variety of different ways that you could do this. But how cool would that be? Using Canva Whiteboard to get your students to label parts of a diagram, something that you're already probably doing in class, but now we're using EdTech to conduct this so that we're able to use that information really quickly and timely to make sure that it informs our teaching and learning practices. All right, our next idea is just a generic kind of idea here for literacy. Okay, maybe your English, language arts, whatever you're teaching. Okay, and we might use Canva whiteboard to map out a story structure using sticky notes. So I can see this in my mind here as an English teacher. We could provide um, a narrative structure, okay, a narrative, plot summary on a Canva whiteboard, and we could get our students to use their sticky notes to show us that particular kind of presentation of the narrative structure from the orientation, our rising action, okay, all the way up to our climax, etc. They could do this using a Canva whiteboard quite easily. We do this now, we do this on paper, but we could easily transfer this into something digital using Canva Whiteboard, where our students could do this digitally very quickly, provide you with instant feedback, instant information to help you with your particular teaching and learning. All right, and idea number 3 again is maybe we could conduct a SWOT analysis on current assessment strategies. So maybe again we're working as a faculty, and everyone within that faculty has access and they're able to pop in their kind of post-it notes or their ideas, okay, into the relevant section of the SWOT analysis, and then you can take that, you can collate that, and then provide the summary results to your colleagues after that particular workshop. So being able to use a collaborative device like Canva Whiteboard, another very, very useful, informative way to conduct formative assessment. All right, so to access Canva Whiteboard, all you need to do is head over to your Canva account, okay, and that is where you'll be able to access Whiteboard, okay. You might just have to have a bit of a search for it, but you will be able to access that in there. Or just head over to the wonderful Google and just type in and search for Canva Whiteboard to get started with that, okay. But a wonderful tool that you could use to conduct formative assessment. Okay, idea number 5, another really simple tool that you are probably already using, okay, and now you can actually use it for formative assessment. And idea number 5 is Google Forms. So Google Forms is a user-friendly tool for educators to easily create surveys, quizzes, and feedback forms for data collection and assessment, okay? The name gives everything away. We are conducting and we are creating a form to collect information. Okay, we might be collecting information from our students, we might be collecting information from our school community, maybe our colleagues, okay, but we can create and do so many things that provide us with instant feedback and information, and we can do that using something simple as Google Forms. Okay, so maybe you are doing something in literacy and reading. Okay, maybe we have been looking at reading comprehension. We could create some short Google Forms, okay, where we've got some multiple choice and short response questions. Really simple, really quick, really effective, okay? Instant feedback, instant information that you can then use to help you inform your teaching and learning moving forward. Okay, maybe you're a high school teacher like myself, and we are collecting generic information from our students at the end of a lesson. Okay, this could be like an exit ticket. Maybe we just ask our students to complete a Google form and we say, what's one thing you still need help with today? Okay, because maybe what you think they need help with is actually not what they think they need help with. So you can gather some really great formative information through this Google form that you can use moving forward. So maybe you could use Google Forms for an exit ticket to gather information using a really simple question like, what's one thing that you still need help with? Or maybe you are some kind of well-being teacher or you're part of a well-being team. Maybe you've got a Google form that is a mood scale and an open-ended reflection for your students. Maybe you've got some kind of mentor and well-being. Okay, we can use a Google form to check in with our students. Maybe we use that at the beginning of our lessons. Okay, maybe we use that on a Monday morning to see how our students are. Are they ready to learn? Do they need a little bit of time? Do we need to have a morning circle and have a bit of a discussion before we jump in to our learning? Okay, so a Google form is a really useful tool to collect information and conduct a really simple, invasive well-being check for our students. So another 3 really great examples on how we could use Google Forms in the classroom. Okay, and obviously to access Google Forms, we head over to Google Workspace. This particular example here on the screen now is actually an example from a previous Innovative EdTech episode where we had a look at some different ways that we could use Google Forms. And here's a perfect example, okay, an exit ticket. Okay, just getting your students to complete a couple of simple questions, okay, to provide you with some information that you can use moving forward. So Google Forms, another really valuable tool that you could use in the classroom to help conduct formative assessment today. Okay, idea number 6. We are 50% of the way here. Idea number 6, Blooket. Okay, Blooket. All right, I love this, and this is something that I was introduced to a couple of years ago by my students. Okay, and Blooket is an engaging platform where educators host interactive games and quizzes, offering a unique and competitive learning experience for students. This is so engaging. It is so competitive. It is unbelievable how much your students really can get into this. And if you're like me and you like to beat your students, I loved also playing this with my classes to see who was better. Sometimes I was, sometimes I was not. So here are 3 really simple ways that we could use this tool in the classroom. Okay, maybe we are doing something with spelling. Doesn't necessarily just have to be primary. Maybe you're doing some spelling in high school. Okay, maybe we've got some match the definitions to our particular spelling words or vocabulary words to check our students' understanding and make sure that they understand what those particular words mean. Okay, a really simple way to conduct some formative assessment that is unique, that is engaging, that is competitive, that is interactive, that is everything that we should be looking at when it comes to really engaging our students. Another example here is maybe you are teaching economics in high school. Okay, maybe we have some financial literacy challenges. Okay, so maybe we have some really specific kind of questions related to our syllabus or our topic, and our students, they're using that skill, that information that you have been teaching them to complete some activities. How simple would that be? Okay, again, providing you with really great information. Okay, it is providing you with an experience that your students are probably going to love and highly engage with. You don't have to do a lot of work here, but a really cool way to check your students' understanding. And maybe for some professional development, okay, we might have an assessment strategy matchup game. So maybe we have some kind of strategies, maybe some adjustments. Okay, we match them up so that we can check our understanding if we are conducting some PD with our colleagues. So Bluecoot is another wonderful tool that you could use to conduct formative assessment. And this is what you will see if you head over to Blooket at the moment. Okay, it is a very simple homepage, which is wonderful, but it is a fantastic tool. So go and check that out and see if that particular tool is right for your particular context. Okay, idea number 7 is Wakelet. Now, I absolutely love Wakelet, and we do use Wakelet here at Evolve EdTech. If you've been over to our website and you've had a look at our EdTech collections, which are collections of a whole range of different EdTech tools, you will find that we are using Wakelet collections, okay, for those particular displays that we have on our website. So Wakelet empowers educators to curate and organize online resources into visually appealing collections for lessons, projects, and sharing with students. Okay, so you could do something here, okay, or you could actually get your students to do a lot of things with Wakelet. All right, so maybe we're doing something in literacy, okay? So we have a Wakelet collection, we have made it accessible to our students, and we are starting to collect student responses to a shared reading. So maybe you've put up some kind of article for your students to read, and we're starting to collect those responses, and we're popping those into a Wakelet collection so that we have that evidence, we have that information available to refer back to, after the lesson so that you can check your students' understanding. A really simple way to use Wakelet to collect information, to even have a work sample that you can then use for a variety of purposes. All right, maybe you're teaching STEM, okay, and we can use Wakelet to curate student project ideas and research sources. So maybe you have some STEM groups, okay, and you have a Wakelet collection for your STEM groups, and this is where they are, curating. This is where they are placing, collecting. This is where they are collaborating on their project ideas, their research sources, so that it's all in one place and you can go and check out their thinking. Okay, kind of like if you're a technology teacher, all right, we always have some kind of diary where we are planning and showcasing and revising. Okay, so we could use Wakelet for that kind of process if we were doing something in STEM. Or maybe with something with our colleagues. Again, another example here is maybe we have a portfolio of classroom strategies or goals. Okay, so maybe you have created a collection that your colleagues can share strategies into. Okay, maybe that's an individual Wakelet collection where you as an educator have been asked to identify 3 classroom strategies that you think you do really well, or some goals that you'd like to work on to help you become an even more efficient, effective educator. So there's so many things that you can do with Wakelet to really enhance and really showcase the power of formative assessment in your classroom. Okay, this is what Wakelet looks like at the moment. Okay, you can jump in there and have a look at Wakelet. It is a really valuable tool. I really think it is something that I would suggest you go and have a look at. But again, just make sure that it is right for your particular context first. Okay, idea number 8, Socrative. Okay, Socrative is a real-time assessment tool for educators to quickly gauge student understanding through quizzes, polls, and exit tickets. Okay, so we did look at Mentimeter earlier. Okay, Socrative could be an alternative if you're looking for something else. Okay, if you're a mathematics teacher, okay, maybe we use Socrative to get our students to show their working and then submit their answers so that we can check their understanding to a particular question or problem, okay, for whatever topic we have been looking at. A really great way to collect information to help us with our future planning. Okay, maybe we are a history teacher, and again, we're collecting information. This time, just a short text response to the question, what's one cause of World War II? Okay, so this could be something we complete at the beginning of a unit to assess our students' understanding, to grab them, to kind of have a basis of where to go to next. So some really simple, short text responses to a question is really simple to do with Socrative. And our final suggestion here, okay, again, for pre-service teachers, okay, because we're always making sure that we are supporting not only our experienced teachers, but our pre-service teachers. Maybe if we've had a session together, okay, maybe we conduct an exit ticket reflection, okay, after some induction sessions. So maybe you're going into a school for some placement to do some work experience, okay, and maybe your supervising teacher asks you to reflect on your lessons, or maybe they've got a group of you're working together collaboratively. Okay, maybe you can have some kind of exit ticket reflection. So you can see here that formative assessment doesn't have to be exclusively for your students. We could also use it with our colleagues, our pre-service teachers, okay, so that we can check their understanding in a way that is supportive and definitely a way that is also going to be very beneficial for not only you, but your colleagues. Okay, that is what Socrative looks like at the moment. If you're interested in that, you can jump in and have a look and see if that is a tool that might be right for your particular context. Okay, we're almost there. Idea number 9, quizzes. Okay, quizzes is a wonderful tool, and it is something that I am starting to get into a little bit more, and I think it's a really great tool to complete formative assessment with. So quizzes is an interactive platform where educators can create or use engaging quizzes and lessons delivered in a fun game-like format for students. Okay, so it's a game-like format, but you can actually include and do some really serious lessons with quizzes, okay, to make it interactive, okay, and to really get your students involved in this particular experience. So maybe you are an ICT teacher, so maybe you're teaching some kind of technology, okay, we could use quizzes to have a match definitions to icons. So maybe we have a CPU or a cloud or something like that, and we are matching definitions to particular icons. How cool is that? So we're doing something that is engaging, we're doing something a little bit different, we're using technology, but it's also providing us with some really valuable information. Okay, maybe you are a biology teacher, okay? Again, we could use quizzes for multiple choice questions, looking at different body systems, okay? So moving away from just being paper-based to seeing how we could do some of these things that we've done on paper for many years, but now we are using technology. Now we are using brand new tools like quizzes to complete these particular assessments that we've done for many years on paper, but now we are using technology. Okay, it's all about a mindset change and looking at what we're doing now. How can we transfer that and how can we complete that using some technology? And again, our final example here is maybe we're conducting some professional development. Okay, maybe we could quiz our colleagues on various strategies that we could use for student engagement. So maybe we're looking at different ways that we could engage our students in our classrooms. Okay, making sure that we're using brain breaks. Hopefully, we are mentioning technology. Okay, but how we could use technology for engagement. But looking at how we could use a tool and embedding that into our professional learning, okay, and really showcasing to our colleagues how we could use these tools by using these tools with our colleagues. And quizzes is a great example to use. All right, this is what quizzes looks like at the moment. Okay, it is wonderful. Okay, you can definitely access that for free as a teacher. So jump in, have a look at that, see what you can do with it. Okay, it's pretty cool and exciting, and I highly recommend you investigate this tool because it is something that is really valuable and I think you will love. So check out quizzes to see how you could use it for formative assessment yourself. All right, and our very final idea here, idea number 10 is Answer Garden. Okay, Answer Garden is a minimalistic real-time feedback tool that creates word clouds from short student responses, making it great for quick formative checks without student accounts. I think that's a really important part here is we don't need student accounts and we can get some really great information very, very quickly. Okay, so maybe we are a primary school teacher. Again, we're doing something with literacy. We might ask our students, what words describe the main character? Okay, so we're asking our students to, go back to the text, identify some different adjectives. What words describe the main character? Are they big, tall? Are they short? Are they fat? Do they have a hat? Okay, what words could we use? Okay, and we're using Answer Garden to create these really quick word clouds. Again, if you're a geography teacher, we might ask our students to list environmental problems caused by urbanization. And hopefully we would get a whole variety of ideas that we could use in a word cloud. Maybe we print them out, maybe we provide them to our students on Google Classroom or digitally in some way so that they can refer back to those if they have an assessment task or an examination or something like that. But here is a word cloud generated by our class of all our ideas responding to this particular question. And our final example here is again for some pre-service teachers. Okay, so maybe what's one formative assessment strategy that you've used? So maybe you are working with your pre-service teachers. Okay, maybe it is on a placement. So what's one formative assessment strategy that you have used in your particular classroom? This might not be a bad one to use with your colleagues in general. Just what's one formative assessment strategy? Let's collate a whole bunch of different formative assessment strategies that we are using in our classrooms. Are there a particular style? Are there a particular type? Okay, do we use them often? There are so many wonderful pieces of information that you can gather from a prompt like this. So Answer Garden, another wonderful tool that you could look at if you are looking to complete and conduct some really great formative assessment. And that is what Answer Garden looks like if you are on the the web-based version there, okay? And you can also see that it's also available for iPad, all right? So at this particular time of recording this particular workshop, okay, that is what Answer Garden looks like. Oh my goodness, there we go. That was a long session, and I am so grateful for those of you that have stuck with this. But there we go. There are just 10 EdTech tools that you can use to conduct formative assessment in your classroom or with your colleagues. Okay, that's just 10. There are so many wonderful other EdTech tools out there that you could use. Okay, we just didn't have time to go through them tonight, and you can see that we've already made it to an hour here just with those 10 tools. So I just want you to remember that formative assessment doesn't need to be complicated, okay? Incorporating EdTech into your formative assessment practices also doesn't have to be difficult, okay? It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be difficult. So a simple EdTech tool can provide you with an absolute wealth of knowledge and information without requiring hours of preparation. Okay, so think about what you could use an EdTech tool for and how you could use it to conduct formative assessment. Okay, I don't want you going out there making this bigger and more complicated than it needs to be, because that is not the purpose. I want you to think about how you could use educational technology to conduct formative assessment in a way that is manageable and sustainable in your particular context and classes. All right, so I have a challenge for you now, and I've started doing this. So if you have been a regular, you'll know that for the past couple of Innovative EdTech sessions, we've actually had some homework. And our homework for this particular session is I want you to have a look at the 10 tools that we've shared tonight, okay, or even an EdTech tool that you are currently using, and think about how you could use one of these tools in the next 48 hours for a formative assessment purpose. So how could you use one of these tools in the next 48 hours for some kind of formative assessment? If you're down here in the Southern Hemisphere like I am, it might be a little bit easier because we're just in the midst of our term 2. Okay, if you're up there in the Northern Hemisphere and you're heading towards summer, okay, this might be a little bit more trickier, but I'm sure that you can still think of one tool that you could use in the next 48 hours to conduct some form of formative assessment. All right, that brings us to the end. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's workshop. I hope that you have taken away something. You've taken away a tool that you might be able to look at. I know we went through that super lightning fast, but we can only do so much in 60 minutes. And now it's up to you to go out and investigate these tools and see which tool might be something that you could look at. Maybe are you going to invest in it? Okay. And how could you use it to conduct formative assessment in your classroom today? Well, we would love for you to stay connected with us here at Evolve EdTech, and here are the different ways that you can stay connected with us. You can head over to our website, evolveedtech.com. You can check out a whole heap of things there. We've got digital resources, templates. We've got infographics. Okay, you can check out our blog, heaps of stuff on our website. It is going to get bigger and better, so please check that out. You can also check out our YouTube channel. If you haven't already done so, we would love it. If you liked this video, give it a big thumbs up and you subscribe to our channel. We are slowly growing. I would love to get to 1,000 subscribers. That would make me so absolutely happy, but we are quite a way off that. So please make sure that you have subscribed to our YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. We'd love for you to connect with us on our socials. We're on Facebook, Instagram. You can check out our TikTok, and we do have a Pinterest page as well. So we'd love to stay connected with you after tonight's session. Okay, if you are looking for some more Innovative EdTech episodes and you want to catch up with every Innovative EdTech episode so far, all the way from episode 1 from 2024 up to episode 15 right now, you can head over to the Evolve EdTech YouTube channel, okay? And we have the Innovative EdTech playlist, okay? So you can go and check those episodes out and have a look at all the other tools and ideas that we have shared with you in our previous Innovative EdTech episodes. So head over to the Evolve EdTech YouTube channel to check out that playlist after you finish this one today. Okay, if you are looking for a little bit more professional learning, we are always here to help you out. And we have created a free digital conference called the Tech Ready Teacher Digital Conference. This particular conference is aimed at empowering you to really have a look at how educational technology can be used and incorporated. And it is a digital conference that you can access anywhere, anytime. All right, so we have a conference week each year where all of our new presentations are made available, but you can access the conference any day of the year at any time, okay, and it is 100% free. So our 2025 digital conference is now available for you to access for free. You can head over to the techreadyteacher.com to register now and access 10 pre-recorded sessions looking at a variety of EdTech ideas, tools, tips and tricks, okay, and that is all 100% free. Our next conference week is next year from the 12th to the 16th of January, when our next set of presentations will be made available. So if you go and head over and register now, you don't have to register again in 2026 because you will automatically get the new resources. Well, that is it. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have joined us live tonight, if you're watching the recording, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you taking the time and spending it with us here and having a look at this particular idea as to how we can use educational technology to conduct formative assessment in the classroom. All right, our next Innovative EdTech episode is on Wednesday, the 18th of June, okay? And our next episode is going to be a practical episode. And we are going to have a look at one of my favorite tools and one tool that I'm using now, which is Canva. So we are going to jump into Canva and have a look at how we can create exciting learning resources with Canva. So it's going to be a practical episode. We're going to jump in. We're going to create some resources using Canva. We're going to create them from scratch, but I'm also going to show you how you can find some wonderful resources in the template libraries over on Canva. All right, just a reminder, if you haven't done so, please like and subscribe to the Evolve EdTech YouTube channel. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us for episode 15. I don't know where I was there. Episode 15 of Innovative EdTech. It has been wonderful to have you here again, and we will catch up with you on the 18th of June for our very next episode, episode 16. Until then, everybody, stay safe, and we can't wait to see you again for episode 16 on the 18th of June.